We're live. I can hear you over there. Remember, my mic is on. It picks up everything, including your thoughts. So think nice thoughts. All right. Today is a regular flex day, so you will have teacher offerings. After I finish showing off what I've got for y'all today, it's a little bit of setup. This is a little bit more of an involved Zoom room, about 15, 20 minutes. But you will still have plenty of time and resources to do the project I have see some of y'all already looking at. The way I have this unit structured is we're going to spend this week talking about 7.2, which is recreating some existing designs. And then next week, you'll have basically the entire time to design your own app icons. And I wanted to give you the most amount of time as possible, as well as this experience of 7.2, so you can kind of see how it comes together in your projects. We're replicating an iPhone. You can do whatever phone you want. This is just the one that's built into Illustrator, so it makes it the easiest. And then there's a couple more little windows we're going to add, like we did for the grain tutorial, add the Pathfinder, align, and transform specifically. There's some Hendrix videos that walk you through this. And there's also a discussion board where you can share some frustrations or questions or things that aren't quite working, so that we as a class and me as a teacher understand where everybody's at, so I can more effectively design these lessons and these activities, so you're actually getting out what I'm hoping for. So there is an Adobe update. I had one the other day. You can run that later, or you can have it run now while I'm talking. But what we're talking about primarily, if we go to your thread, is this project 7.2 right here. And what project 7.2 is asking of you, this is the element of design space. We're going to be looking at positive and negative space icons. And what does that mean in a little bit more detail? If we go to the space page on Unit 7, it is the biggest relationship that comes to mind when we talk about space, when we consider space. And there's two different ways that we break that down. Positive is the design that's occupied by the main subject, so the thing that's going to draw your eye towards it, whereas negative is going to be the space in between. These two components make up 100% of designs as a whole, not only in graphics, but in architecture, in furniture, interior design, anything where humans are doing some kind of art to a space or to a visual. There is a relationship between positive and negative space. And the biggest, or the things I want you to remember is positive is going to be occupied by something, whether that's like color, design, font, something is going to draw your eye towards positive space, and negative space is going to be the thing that surrounds it or occupies the remainder, but both are equally important. Hi, good morning. We're in the Zoom room. Here's an example of some of the things in the positive space. We have the tree and then the mountains, as well as the lake, all things that are really kind of pulling your attention forward. Whereas the negative space includes some of the sky features, some of the details on the mountains, the relationship between different aspects like the sun and the hills. That is negative space. And you can see it here when we remove the color. Positive space is going to have it's really hard to see on the projector, I apologize, but on the Zoom room, positive space takes up a majority of where our eyes are going, whereas negative space is going to fill in the back halves or the back portions of designing. So where you see positive and negative space, specifically for our classes, here's 6, 7 examples ranging from poster design all the way down to web design, all using sculpture, especially positive and negative space, and breaking down how those things, how the space relationship happens in each of these examples. So what are we doing? You're using Adobe Illustrator to duplicate common icons, so like app or web icons. This is very, very common graphic design work if this is a direction you go outside of college, or outside of high school, I mean. And also something that you can see every day, because we all have cell phones, we all use computers. These positive and negative icons are all over our world. You just have to know how to look for them. Okay, this is going to be focused on some more complex shape building and using your space more effectively, using your space more intentionally, the same way we kind of broke down color. And how you be successful is determining by how well the forms are going to match the sample image for this project, and they should be pretty close to the icons pictured. So there's a couple learning goals in there. This is a great resource. I will add some more space explaining things to your thread. so that you have some other ways to kind of see how space interacts if you haven't really kind of looked into that before, which is okay if so. So back to your actual assignment, you're going to be recreating these icons right here as best you can using shape tools, using the stuff that we've covered so far. I'll show you an example of a few. There's a couple that are optional. But for this assignment, we're going to spend the rest of the week on, so that you want to use your time effectively, especially today. So we have a 3-day work cycle. Starting today on your block day is learning and watching, and then starting to execute, just kind of getting familiar with the tools I have to show off. Tomorrow, you'll spend as a work day just getting as many icons done as you can, and then the final day on Friday is to refine those works and submit them by midnight. So Mr. Hendricks has 2 really useful resources. But similarly to the pen tool pre-assessment and the shape building test, I want you guys to try this on your own and see how far you can get with my examples, with Mr. Hendricks' examples, before you just go straight into copying the instructions on here. So there's a couple different guides that come out of what I'm about to show you here. I'm going to show you some of these. We won't get all the way into guide 3 in the Zoom room. We'll focus mostly on guide 1. And then there's some commercial samples, right? You've seen these before, perhaps. Look at the relationship of how the space happens, like on the folder icon. A lot of positive space in the main design, and then just a gentle amount of negative space kind of softens the eye, helps it easier to understand. You can see that on the FaceTime logo. You can see that on the camera logo. You'll start to see it the more you look for it. And it takes some time to develop the eye here. Okay, so breakdown of the assignments is completed. You guys can read into it with more detail if you would like. But before you get started, I'm going to have you guys open Illustrator and do a little bit of window setup, and I'll do a quick demo so that you guys have some working things that make this process a little bit easier. So what we're going to do, from the Illustrator homepage, you're welcome to follow along with me. You're going to click on New File and click on the word Mobile right in the top here. Mobile is going to have a bunch of different preset artboards. If you expand it, you can see it ranges from an Apple Watch, an iPad, a Google Nexus, Surface Pro computer, iPhone X. You got tons of different options here. I'm going to use the iPhone X preset, this first one right here. And I'm going to leave most of the settings as is. RGB, because we're working on a screen. We actually do want to keep this one in pixels because you don't want to build a 5x5 icon that spills over the edge of your phone or whatever phone you're building for. And then you just click Create. And that's going to present us like normal with our, let me reset this back to how it's supposed to look. It's going to present us with our artboard that is in essence the same size as an iPhone X screen. So if you were to build a wallpaper on this artboard, it would fit perfectly onto your cell phone if you have an iPhone X. I do want to remind y'all before we do a little bit more window setup, if you zoom out, you can see the light and the dark gray aspects of our artboard. You can think of this like a big tabletop. Okay, you can put references on here. You can put different colors, different experiments. This is your workspace. And the only thing that you put in the final frame right here is what gets exported and sent out to the client, which is me in this case. So you have a lot of space to work with. You have a lot of space to experiment with that won't get included in your export. I don't think you can go past, I don't know what happens if you go into the gray. I'm typically stuck in the dark gray. But you have lots of space to work with, which helps when we get to the next step of getting the actual image inside of our artboard here. So if you go back to Canvas, there is the icons you need to replicate, and it says icons.jpg right here. When you click that, we're going to place that into our Illustrator document. You should actually click the download button and not the words button. So I'm going to save this. You can put it into your OneDrive. I'm going to go into semester 2, 6th period graphic design. I'm going to create a new folder for 7.2. You do not have to, but it helps me stay organized. And then I'm just going to leave the file name icons.jpg as is. Click Save, go back to Illustrator, and we're going to place it the same way that we placed a lot of our files for all the way back to Unit 1, the tracing assignment, 6.3, your reference assignment, right? We're going to embed the image into the document. So if we send this raw file, this AI file, to Mr. Blakeney or to another designer, whoever needs it, they have access to all the materials baked in. So you go to File, you go to Place, you find where you put that file. Sorry, my folder looks a little funky. Let's go to 6th period graphic design, project 7.2. There's icons.jpg. Click place, click again. We're going to resize this a little bit. It is a JPEG, so it's not going to scale real nice. It's going to get pixelated, but thankfully we can zoom in and out. I have mine about that big. So now if we zoom in and hold the space bar to click and drag around, we have a nice reference of how we can start recreating some of these icons. Or we're not tracing so much as you're recreating. So before you start recreating though, there's a couple different things that you want to have in your Illustrator workspace that make things a little bit easier. And that is going to be the Pathfinder tool. These are going to be out of alphabetical order. So we're going to go Pathfinder. And when you click on Pathfinder, it actually opens up a 3-tab situation that includes Align and Transform, which is really nice because those are the 3 that we're going to be using the most for this assignment. So what I like to do is separate them out. If you click and drag from the words, Pathfinder, Align, or Transform, it's going to turn them into their own little windows that you can arrange around your artboard. Or if you're feeling crazy, you can stick them together like we did on the grain assignment, and it'll make it move as one big window until you separate one on accident. I'll just put that back on there. Okay, so the reason that I have you guys using the Pathfinder and the Align tools specifically, Transform is not going to be used as much, but these two are tools that I use consistently in almost every graphic design project. Let me show you why. So let's say, for example, you're trying to recreate this notes icon here. Let's break this notes icon down into its basic shapes. A lot of rectangles, a little bit of text, a couple of lines, right? It's super hard to see on the projector, but there is lines like it's lined paper on the situation here. This has a rounded edge to it. So there's 2 ways I can make that rounded edge. I can either click and drag a regular square rectangle, or I mean like a 90-degree right rectangle. And then I can drag these little handles to make the edges rounded. Right, you're creating a little contour like you would imagine a pen or a pen anchor point here, a pen anchor point here, and you're just curving around it. Okay, you can do that, or you can click and hold on the rectangle tool to get the rounded rectangle tool, which just skips that first step. It makes it kind of pill shaped, a little bit too large. I'm gonna hit V on my keyboard to resize some of this a bit. Can't make it any smaller. So actually, it's going to be easier to do the original rectangle, but that rounded rectangle, if you want to try and make it work, that works too. Press V on my keyboard to go back to my selection tool, resize this, round it off a little bit, getting it as close as I can. Okay, so there's this section right here that I'm looking at where the binder of the notes happens. I'm going to just scoot this. You can also, if you're not using these panels, click on these little arrows and that will collapse them, give you a bit more workspace, and it lets you kind of move our Pathfinder tools over the side. Okay, so what I want to do is recreate this notes part, but I don't want to try to line up these curves once again. I don't want to try and do it by hand. So I'm going to be an efficient graphic designer. If we look at my layers panel, which is here, expand that, we just have the rectangle and the image. Control C, Control F, just like we did on 6.3. And I'm going to make the fill color on the top box just a different color. We'll go with, let's do like a skyline green. That's a little bit army. Right there. Okay, that's pretty skyline. So now what we can do, because this rectangle is directly on top of the other one, is just pull it from the bottom. And it's going to maintain that corner relationship that we're looking for on the top up here. And I can grab my handles. Let me zoom in a little bit so I can see all 4 of them here. I want to just move these ones. Why is it not letting me? So we could round them out like that. Hold on. Trying to get it. There's a way. It's not doing what I need it to. Make it a little bit bigger. There we go. Okay, so we want to see all 4 of these handles for all 4 are these circular parts for all 4 of the rounded corners here. If you hold Shift and click on the bottom 2, you can unround them so that it affects both corners like this. Now we can resize it, make it a little bit smaller, and it's going to maintain that binding just like it does on the example here. Okay, we'll take a little bit of text, write the word not knights. notes. Okay. And now the reason that I have the align panel out is because this is great if it goes well, but what happens if everything gets all discombobulated, separated, all messy and nasty? The align tool is so insanely useful that I cannot imagine graphic design without it, to be honest. The way that the align panel works, let me close my layers, is when you have multiple things selected, right? We have 3 pieces right here. When you have multiple things selected, shift click on each of the Notes app parts. You can align those things together on the center, which gets them all at least centered on one another. And then if you're feeling crazy, you can also align them to the vertical part, which is going to line up their center points all on one specific spot. So the reason I have you guys, the reason I'm showing you this, let me lower the opacity so you can see through the screen. There we go. The reason I have you guys doing this is my thing got all off kilter. I can just shift click on those 2 pieces and vertically or horizontally align them to the center. It's going to lock them onto one another. And then I can just click on my top one, lower it down, and get it right back into the right spot. So now let's say that I want to put the notes in the center of these 2 pieces. No worries. I can just group these 2 pieces together by shift clicking on them, holding Control and pressing G, so that way they move as one piece, and then shift clicking on the word notes. And what happened there? That wasn't supposed to happen. Okay, let me see if this is doing it right real quick. What happened? Oh, I grouped the image in with the, whoops. I grouped the image with the icon here. So in order to avoid that, when you open up your layers panel, you see these blue squares. Each of these blue squares means it's something that you have selected currently. So I'm gonna unselect, oh, just kidding. I'm gonna only select the 2 rectangles like this, making sure that my linked image does not have a square. Now when I press Control G and I shift click on notes and align to center, it should put that directly in the middle of what I'm working with here. And click on notes and then use my arrow keys to bring it down. And then I can just quickly add some lines, whether that's with the pen tool or otherwise. The line segment tool will make it have no fill and no stroke, which is annoying. So I just want to double click on my stroke box, make it black, and I can increase the stroke weight to make it appear a little bit thicker. Okay, Alt click and drag to bring a copy, and rotate that while holding Shift. All stuff we've been practicing pretty consistently. And we'll just make a couple lines here, Control DDD. And there's my Notes app pretty closely recreated, or my Notes app icon pretty closely recreated with the positive space on the notes section right here, and then an interaction of the negative space underneath right here, all to recreate the Notes app in this way. And what we do with that, if I turn off my image here so it stops getting selected, is now I can put this Notes app icon onto my iPhone somewhere. And just we'll shift to scale it up. That might be a little too big. Scale it down a little bit. Group the whole thing together so that it doesn't fall apart when I move it. And now I have recreated a Notes app icon, paying attention to the relationship of the space and using tools like Pathfinder. We haven't used Pathfinder yet, and Align. So last thing I'm going to show y'all before I'll let you get into either Mr. Hendrix's videos or just trying these on your own is the Pathfinder tool and how you can use it, as well as something called Object Expand. So if we're looking at these headphones here, and I'm trying to make this curved shape, one approach could be to take the brush tool and just kind of shakily try and trace over that, which great, works, but doesn't look super great. Okay, I can try and take my pen tool and try to do something like this, where it's like, you know, that looks okay. It's a little bit off on the right side. It's not gonna be maybe the best thing that I'm looking for here. There's 2 things you can do here called expanding and then using the Pathfinder in order to create this shape right here. If you notice, you can imagine that there's a rounded rectangle or like a pill shape that's taking up this bottom half that's just a little bit invisible. That is by design. That's how the space is teaching your eye what focuses on what in each different spot. So to recreate this, I am going to use a rounded rectangle because it'll automatically make that nice curve, as well as having the nice spot like this. Okay. Let's say I line it up pretty close, pretty similar. I can use a different shape like another rounded rectangle with a fill. Okay, I filled it with white. Let's do that skyline. Let's just do a green. Okay, I can line it up where the headphone pieces start. I can resize these. I can maybe make it a little bit smaller to get kind of the ear cups of the headphones. Just do a little bit of resizing here. But if I wanted to just have this headband portion and use the ear cuffs later, I can select both of these things, take my Pathfinder and use the minus front mode and snip that off. But what it does is it just creates a stamp out of the shape that we had laid out initially. And that's not what we're going for. We just want this headband piece to happen in that way. So in order to do that, there's something that you can do in Illustrator called expanding. What expanding does is it not improves, but does some type of Illustrator magic. I can't remember exactly what happens, but it basically takes the stroke or the vector, the relationship of the anchor points, and kind of turns it into a different form of that vector. And in order to do that, the reason that you'll do that is to go Object, Expand. And it'll pull you with this option right here, fill and stroke. You can just leave those, click OK. Doesn't look like anything changes besides the fact that it looks like the anchor points have shifted gears a little bit here. So now, if I were to do minus front again on these two shapes like this, now I have two different headphone headbands that I can ungroup and that I can work with in this way. Or perhaps I could use this top part of the pill to create the ear cups for my headphones, right? Let me add a little bit more fill to these so it's not, you guys have options here is what I'm saying. Two different headphone band options with the Object Expand stroke. So last thing I'll say, I know I've been talking for a while and I've been going pretty fast. So thank you guys for listening, and I will be able to help you individually. I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page here. The optional icons that you can do for a couple extra points are the Notes app, the Envelope email app, and the cupcake icon. The rest of these are required. And Mr. Hendricks will show you how to do some of them. I can help you do some of them. You guys are capable of doing a lot of them already. You maybe just don't know it yet. But those other ones are required and they're due by Friday. Yeah, Fernando.
So we're not like the extra points for the note envelope and the
Yes.
Then the ones that we have to do are the ones down here or also the ones.
Everything else. So the calendar, gears, film, camera, cloud, paper, headphones, pictures, and coffee cup, as well as the messaging, maps, and trash can are the ones that you're required to do. But these ones are worth some extra points if you want a little bit more challenge. Make sense? Sorry, I talked for longer than I planned. But thank you guys for listening so well. Okay, rest of this time is yours. I can help you. Mr. Hendricks can help you with his videos. There's other things I can find. Good luck. We have until Friday to finish these up.